It's difficult to explain how hard it was for me to hit the record button on my gear. Obviously, it's been a while. It's been a long while. I suppose for me, I had to take a break from the show. Look, being a podcaster, especially in 2023, is an interesting gig, yeah, because every man and his dog's got a podcast. And obviously, I don't put as much effort into the social media side of things. I'm going to talk a little bit about that later. However, I do have a bit of a plan for this one. I'm calling it Unsupervised X or 10, raw and unfiltered. I'm not entirely sure this one's... Look, I'm not going to hold back, okay? So maybe be sitting down for this one or have a drink ready for later. Because, look, it's so interesting that the times never cease to be more difficult and more interesting. And I suppose I had to take a break from the show. It's 7 years, right? 7 years I've been doing this. And there's the 7-year itch theory. I had someone talk to me about that. However, I think more than that, I had to experience what life was like without doing the show, without actually focusing and trying to scramble for the next guest and organising times. And because that's all that behind the scenes stuff that people don't see exists. And it's difficult in 2023, particularly down under, because, you know, like I said, I think in the last Unsupervised, it hasn't really changed since then. You know, I'm working practically 7 days a week, and it's hard to try and find time, particularly for international guests, to sit down at a reasonable time for both of us. And things fall through, and that happened repeatedly for a little while, and I think I just got sick of it. The deeper part of, it was like I was struggling against it. There was conflict there. There was conflict in trying to do this and trying to do the show. And look, even today, a window opened up and I took it, just to see whether or not this would make me feel better. However, as much as there was a conflict in trying to do the show and there was resistance there, there's been a certain peace without doing it. There has been that, all right? There has been a peace without doing the show. And I think, and I'm not, again, it's hard to remember. Being a teacher, I talk to a lot of people. It's hard to remember what I've said and what I haven't said. However, I see myself as an introverted extrovert, okay? And more introverted than extroverted. I think the extroverted side to things was me doing the show, was me being a teacher, right? And a big part of that is I understood through use of mushrooms late last year, early this year, into this year, that one of the reasons I became a teacher unknowingly, teaching was not a plan, it's sort of just a guy I respected said, Triff, you might be a good teacher. And then the podcast itself, there was an underlying trauma there where I didn't feel like I was heard as a child, and I was always teased because of my name, and there's a hell of a lot attached to that where I haven't been allowed to speak. So I put 200 and, however many hundreds of hours of content out to the internet and became a teacher where my job was talking the whole time. And I think that need to be heard, or that need to express, one of the things, the mushrooms, that trauma, that pressure, that it took that away, right? So that trauma, that pressure, that need, that inbuilt system that needed to be satisfied, a belief system or stereotype, needed to be served, I suppose, doesn't need to be served anymore. And, that happened earlier this year, and I took another big break earlier this year, as listeners of the show will know. Look, it doesn't matter whether I take a break or not, the downloads still come. I mean, there's still been thousands of downloads the last couple of months, and thank you very much for that. I really appreciate that. And I think it probably comes to, the other big epiphany I had about 2 months ago now, because I'm trying to find a way forward. I'm trying to find a way through. I'm trying different things to, get some more resources, and I've got bills I need to pay. I've got debts I need to pay, and not a lot's been working out. But I don't think a lot's been working out for many people, right? And it was through this process, I've tried to apply for different jobs and I haven't had any luck, and I just think the training space has evolved and changed and morphed. And with the economic pressures, training's one of those things that goes by the wayside, right? You don't have to train. Right? Well, some things you have to train. However, it's one of those things that goes up and down economically. So it's been very difficult. I'm still at home, right? I'm still teaching from my house, and it's ultra repetitive and interesting experience, I suppose. And I've had to find different ways to deal with it. I've moved myself around the property, tried in different spots and different places, and I've taken big deep breaths and re-engaged and used a lot of the stuff that we've talked about, like a lot of these mental health things. We talk about, keeping it simple, taking your time, resetting, refocusing, re-engaging. However, it's not always that easy, and I think, one of my epiphanies I had, and I think a lot of people can echo with this, is I have a self-worth issue. But when I say self-worth, I mean crippling self-worth issue. And it really didn't dawn on me how crippling it truly was until not long ago, right? I mean, and you look back and you reflect through your existence, right, on these trauma cycles, these cycles of time. The cyclical trauma cycle is basically what I'm calling it. And you come back around, and my self-worth and my lack of self-worth, I've missed so many opportunities. It's interesting, right? I've made millions and millions of dollars as a trainer, and I've saved millions of dollars on projects. I've made so much money for so many people. And, I'm not alone these days in trying to struggle to make ends meet, a big part of the reason I haven't stepped away from working from home is that it's going to cost me the best part of $300 to get to and from somewhere every week. And I can save that money by not doing it, right? It's a difficult balance, yeah? But basically I was looking at that and I'm like, why? Why can I do this for other people but I can't do it for myself, right? And it's like, well, you've got a problem with self-worth, yeah? And especially with this show, a massive imposter syndrome. I've got no idea why you guys actually listen to me, apart from the fact I just haven't given up and I've just keep putting content out there, and I don't feel worthy of being listened to, right? I mean, it does go back to I wasn't listened to as a kid, but I don't really care anymore either. This is the whole listen to thing, the whole verbalizing stuff, that's in a different category now. Whereas the self-worth thing, crippling self-worth issues, not feeling worthy of anything, right? Which then feeds into depression. That feeds into the dark side of the force, doesn't it? Right? The anger, fear, hate, guilt. When you think you're not worthy, then you manifest that shit into your existence, right? And one of the things I do in my class, and it's interesting, right? Art imitates life. One of the pieces I give to each group is I tell them that they're worthy, right? I sit there and I tell these people that they're worthy. And the grand irony of it is that I don't feel worthy myself. Well, look, identifying the issue, and I've sat with it for a couple of months, it's not that I don't feel worthy anymore. I try and process these things and move forward, you know what I mean? It's having the tools in the toolkit and implementing the tools are two different things, but it was that was part of the epiphany, was the irony of me telling people that they are worthy and bringing some of these people to tears by doing that and making them feel better. And yet the whole time I'm sitting here and I feel like shit, right? I don't feel worthy, right? I don't. And that worth ties into material worth. It ties into your ability to make money. It ties into your ability to feel better, right? Like, it's crippling, right, when you have a self-worth issue, because it doesn't matter how good something is, or, you know, how privileged you are for something to happen to you, or the compliments that you get given, or anything like that. You don't feel it. Okay? And I think there's a lot of people out there can identify with what I'm saying. That's part of the reason I've decided to turn the mic on, is that, well, number one, a lot of people have asked me to turn the mic back on. And, you know, Angus keeps poking me, and Loomis keeps poking me, and you know, Anthony, I did a live with Anthony a little while ago that was more sort of visual than audio. That's why I haven't really released it here, because I know most of you guys are audio. However, you know, I think I'm not alone, right? And a burden shared is a burden lightened. Okay, because the thing is, if we can all identify with even part of what I'm saying, then we can take some of that weight off our shoulders, right? Because we're not alone. And look, I just think the system is designed to make you feel like you're alone. However, the cyclic trauma cycle is one of those things that when you walk into it and you embrace the journey of it, you've got no fucking idea what you're doing when you do that. Okay, it's sort of a bit like, you know, one of the things that the mushrooms helped me realize, and I saw through using those, and I am talking about psilocybin, guys. It very, very useful to me, unbelievably so. I'm looking forward to the next time the opportunity arises, because I'm using it as a medicine. It is very much a medicine. But 7 years ago, I called something unlocking the code, and I said that we were going to unlock the code, right? I didn't have any idea what I was talking about when I said that. Because me being me, I don't let go of something and say, hang on a minute, you're unlocking the code. Well, that is that. How many different levels do you need to unlock that? And there is a lot of different levels. You know, and a big part of this, I knew at the start, was for my own mental health, right? It was to talk through my own, but I didn't realise that the whole reason I was bloody doing it was because of my own mental health and a trauma-based cycle that I, didn't feel heard and acknowledged. So I literally projected that onto the universe, right? And then it's like, then I'm like, okay, how do I get out of what I'm doing and make some more money and just get ahead and not that and there's a big conflict there, because I'm not a materialistic person, right? I understand that capitalistic and materialistic things aren't going to make you happy. Yet at the same time, I've built an awesome studio. Look, most of the stuff in here was either free or like Facebook Marketplace. Like, it's not like I spend a mozza on. I don't have a mozza to spend. And it's a beautiful space. However, I also, I think with everybody, and like I'm not the only person, we'd all look a bit more liquid cash, I suppose, is what you could say, right? To relieve the debts owed and the things that need to be paid. Because week to week it's difficult, right? And this is the whole point, right? You've got there's so many sides to it. There's the materialistic side. There's the three-dimensional side where I'm a father, I'm a husband. I need to pay more attention to my children. I need to do a lot of different things. I need to find time for myself, find time for my wife and our relationship. Then there's the mental health aspect, right, where you're trying to analyze your existence and trying to evolve out of these negative patterns that only that you recognize in yourself, but you see in other people and you see in the world. And then there's that side of things where we just can't talk about Fight Club, right? No one wants to talk about Fight Club, and Fight Club literally could be any one of 15 different things that are going on simultaneously, right? And I try and pay attention to that. Like I've been paying attention to world politics and diplomacy, and look, that's just one of the rabbit holes I'm constantly paying attention to, whether or not the megalithic stuff has taken priority or the spiritual stuff or the mental health stuff. I'm always keeping an eye on so many different things, and whilst you're doing that, trying to work through your cyclical trauma cycle, and you come back around and then round and around, and it's like, does it ever end? I've got bad news, guys. I don't think that it does ever end, okay? I think maybe you're going to keep going round and round until you can finally let that shit go, right? But then once you let it go, there's just the next layer, right? It's like an onion. You're peeling back layers, okay? And maybe the job is not to get to the end of the onion, right? Or maybe it's you're constantly learning, you're constantly growing and analysing and applying critical thinking and being objective, right? Collecting tiles on the mirror ball, right? It's quite fascinating. I've sort of looked back a little bit. And no, I don't have it. Or do I have it? Yeah, I do. I can do that. I found the Coder's Oath, version 2 of the Coder's Oath, actually, which I might, I'm just trashing the joint behind me. That's okay. I think that was Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life that fell on the floor. It's all right. Jordan will be okay with that. I mean, where do you and how do you start processing and just existing three-dimensionally? Just take everything else away. Just three-dimensional, right? Trying to keep the bills paid. Trying to keep the wolves from the door. Trying to feed the family. Trying to make time. In the time of Kali Yuga, right? I mean, everyone's broke, yeah? That's one of the fight clubs we can't talk about, right? We're all riding that razor's edge, right? And the thing is, too, the other side of it is as well, is that I understand that I'm very, very lucky to have the house that I have, to bought it at the time that I bought it, and therefore I'm not under the $1 million mortgage stress. However, a lot of people are. Man, can you imagine? Like, I don't even know, $700,000 mortgage. What are you paying a month? You got to find $1,500 before you even feed your family. Or do anything. Now that is not sustainable. However, guess what? It doesn't have to fucking be that way. It's basically major corporations just putting their prices up for the sake of putting their price up. Yes, I know about inflation and the cash rate and all that sort of stuff. I'm paying close attention to that as well. However, the initial bump, all the major corporations on the planet, mainly BlackRock and Vanguard and subsidiaries of those, because that's basically who owns the planet, are making record profits. Record, right? Why and how is that cool? We can't talk about Fight Club, though. Can't talk about that. That there's two major corporations that run the fucking planet. And they're just making untold, just squeezing the middle class, just making rich and poor, and that's it. Right? Just destroying whatever's left of the middle class resistance that survived the bullshit that was COVID. Right? We can't talk about that Fight Club, too. We definitely can't talk about Died Suddenly Club, even though it happens all the time. I think the next dot point, as I glance down at my notes here, is ignorance bliss, right? Because you're on maybe it's the cosmic trauma cycle, not cyclic. Or maybe it's the cosmic. I looked down and saw cosmic. Oh, let's go with that. You've got the cosmic trauma cycle that you're trying to improve so you can hopefully get off this forsaken rock and off to somewhere else, right? To go home. Wouldn't it be nice to go home? You've got the world that we exist in. And if you are even somewhat aware of not only the Orwellian nature of existence, right? Like if you haven't done it yet, read George Orwell's 1984. Spoiler alert, it doesn't end well. However, read it. I just need a drink, guys. Hang on. We all need to read that book. It must be said too, he wrote it as a warning, not a fucking instruction manual. However, the Orwellian nature of our existence is unbelievable, right? The two last dot points I've got in this first little section is ignorance bliss, and what is the cost of knowing, right? Because if you only have, I think it's what's Jody's average is fuck, right? You can only be average if you give 20% of 20% to your family, 20% to work, 20% to physical fitness, 20% to hobby, and then hopefully you've got 20% for something else, right? You're not ever going to be 100% at anything. Okay, so your best bet is to be average. But if you begin to pay attention to the lunacy, and look, the cost of knowing, and I think the knowing is the thing, right? And knowing's an interesting question. Obviously, do we know? But I tell you one thing I do know: everything's bullshit. Okay, everything that we were brought up to believe, the systems that are behind it, it's all bullshit. Give me something. Seriously, send me an email and tell me something that's not bullshit. Okay, religious and spirituality, bullshit. Okay, I've had a different lens into that, and it's like, I've got some pieces here in the refinery that I saved up money for, some pieces of crystal or a cool ornament or something like that. I saved up money to buy those things. Well, look, I know how much those things cost now, and we're being ripped off, right, for our spiritual tools that are in a basket in a warehouse and built by the hundreds, thousands, millions probably, hundreds of thousands, sell for cents on the dollar. It's bullshit, okay? And I think this whole, there's two sides to the spiritual stuff that I see at the moment. There is the ascension, we've got to ascend. You're living in this world, sorry, I don't like it either. You are a three-dimensional being, you are mind, body, spirit. You need to seat yourself on this planet. If you don't at least attempt to look after your body, you're not ascending anywhere, okay? And look, I'm going to be blunt this show, okay? I fair warning, all right? Why is it the most ascended master, grandmaster, poobah, blah, 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 are fat and sick, okay? Right, we could talk about politics. All the health ministers look like they're about to die, or they're fat, and or girls pretending to be boys, or boys pretending to be girls, or whatever the hell it is, right? This is the point I'm trying to, the point is everything's bullshit, okay? It's only you and me, but really it's you, and for me it's me. It's only us, right? We are the only ones that look ourselves in the mirror every day. We're the only ones that can help ourselves. We're the only ones to find the way out. Okay, no one's coming to save us. Okay, look, I would love that the ultra-terrestrial advanced civilization that lives under the ocean. I wish they'd come and save us. I do. However, I don't think it's going to happen. We've got to save ourselves. And even if they do come, wouldn't it be better if you were trying to save yourself? You want to ascend. You want to get past this three-dimensional merry-go-round of bullshit that we continue to exist in. You've got to try and realize that you are God. Now, look, that is a big statement. Okay, you are the God or goddess within. You are the universal source energy, whatever it is you want to call it. When you talk about unlocking the code, that's the answer, right? And that's the question that I've been wrestling with for nearly 3 years, right? I found the triptych stuff midway through 2020, and it's like, oh my God, this is the answer. And not only is it the answer, it's the echoes of the old religion. It's in all the megalithic structures, blah, blah, blah. It's in everything. That is the piece, that is the glue that glues everything together. But how do you communicate it? How do you communicate that effectively, right? And the thing is, that whole thing, the megalithic advanced ancient civilization, a lot of that's bullshit too. A lot of that's people infighting. A lot of that's people stealing people's work. It is, right? People accusing people of things, right, that aren't true, and just to bring people down, stealing subjects, stealing subject matter, right, publishing stuff they're not allowed to publish. It's all bullshit as well. It's a more positive side of the research, but the reality is social media took over, and if I see some other dude or dudette, right, in the corner of someone else's video making funny faces, pointing at the sky, yeah, he, ho, 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 right? And then just, making, quizzical faces as they look at megalith stuff and get 10,000 hits on it, 100,000 hits, 1 million hits. I mean, unlocking the code, well, number one, it was never about that, okay? Because the only reason I got Facebook was for the podcast. I rebelled against it. And to be honest, if the unlocking the code is on its final lap, which it may very well be, not this episode, but we might be on the final run. I don't know, okay? The conclusion is a big question mark here at the end of this little set of notes. However, I was never going to sell my soul for this show, right? This show was always about my own personal integrity. It was about me practicing what I preach. It was about me trying to implement the things that we spoke about and think about things objectively and collect the tiles on my mirror ball for you to share with you, in the hope that maybe you agree or not. I don't want you to agree with everything I say. How boring would that be? Okay? Have your own opinions. Again, don't listen to me. I don't know what I'm talking about. However, names, government, religion, banking, money, just everything is bullshit, okay? And the cost of knowing that, yet still having to function within the bullshit, is difficult, right? Because I imagine, look, some of you must feel the same way. You just look around and go, for fuck's sake, are we serious? Why are you doing that? That makes no sense. Oh my fucking God, what are we doing? Right? Surely some of you look around and say, and I know you do, I'm not saying, however that, and then then you're supposed to function every day, right? You're supposed to smile and teach the class and do the thing and blah, 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 blah. And it's difficult. The cost of knowing is difficult, right? But I split these into a few categories to just get off my head. I started with geopolitics. The reason I started with geopolitics is because what's the line in the poem? Once the narrative was crumbling, they distracted us with war. For those still thinking clearly, it felt like Orwell's 1984, right? Do you remember that? COVID, the narrative was crumbling, like acceleratingly crumbling. And then, boom, Ukraine versus Russia, right? Even though the Ukraine versus Russia conflict's been going on since 2014 and the West started it. But we can't talk about Fight Club, right? Look, if this one doesn't get pulled off YouTube, I haven't done my job. And look, where is that at? If you listen to episode 200, which I really enjoyed with the boys, where we left no stone unturned, I said that Russia was going to take their time, as they do, build and build and build and build and build, and then just start grinding. Now, and it's quite fascinating, right? You listen to the JRE and Mike Baker, ex-CIA, and I used X in inverted commas because he's definitely not X. His report on the Ukraine versus Russia conflict was Ukraine's holding their own and Russia's got bad leadership. That is just straight propaganda, right? So I'm hearing from multiple other sources that the Ukrainians have lost up to 500,000 men, right? Whereas Russia's only lost 50. They're killing 8-1, and you can't move in Ukraine without being targeted. Now let's use the UTC. Let's take the Mike Baker perspective, which he gave to the JRE, which is the most popular podcast on the planet, therefore feeding the narrative. And then you look at the underground reporting and the other side of stuff that I've listened to. And it's not just, it's boots on the ground people I've listened to. I should have written some names down, but I didn't. They're saying 500,000. Mike Baker's saying 50. So let's call it 300,000, right? And let's say the Russians, it's 3-1 or 4-1, right? 4-1 Ukrainians killed for one Russian. Now, we provoked the biggest gangster in the world with some of the richest buddies in the world. Now, Russia has the ability to mobilize, to fire up munitions factories and to do all of that stuff. And by all reports, they are. Okay? Again, let's go middle of the road from all the different sides of research that I've seen. Russian military is about 750,000 strong right now, armed and ready to go. And if you believe a couple of other different perspectives, Russia needs to expand its territories to remain relevant as far as generationally is concerned. That'd all be news to you because we don't hear about the Ukraine anymore because what? Palestine and Israel. Now, I saw a Harry Potter meme. You guys know I love my memes, and it's like Hermione, Harry, and Ron are standing there, and it's one's got a Jewish symbol, one's got a Muslim symbol, one's got a Christian symbol, and the meme is, why is it always you three? Because regardless of the complications in that region, right, that war has been going on since before Jesus was born, right? Realistically, or since then, how would you encapsulate that? Thousands of years either way, right? Imagine if you could think about the literage of blood that's been spilt on that little peninsula between where Israel and Palestine exist. Imagine if you could see that in real time. How much blood in that little area for the Holy Land. I always thought, for those that don't know, I got kicked out of Sunday school when I was 7 because I asked the poor young girl too many questions because the story didn't make sense to me. And I've always seen like the Holy Land, how much blood, if there was really a God, whether it be Allah, whether it be whatever, whichever variation of the same story, mind you, that echoes well beyond any Bible, right? And for the record, I've got 3 versions of the Bible in the bookcase here in the refinery, and I have read them. Not in a while. I haven't read the Bible in a while, but that fight has been going on forever. But noticed that if you had been paying attention, the reports out of the Ukraine where Ukraine is losing, blah, 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 Ukraine's falling back, Ukraine, and then ding, 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 ding. Next one, right? It is so Orwellian in nature, yeah? However, they're talking about the religious war to end all wars. Like, I wonder whether during COVID the Arab nations decided to build, right? Because the West is, too busy trying to poison themselves and not knowing what a woman is. My call is that by the end of the winter, Russia will have pretty much moved where it wants to move. Okay? That's what I'm hearing. They're slowly grinding forward, which is what the Russians do. They just keep moving forward. It doesn't matter to them. Okay? And you provoke the world's biggest gangster, but also the world's biggest gangster has a realistic expectation that he will be fighting the West on Ukraine soil once he kills all the Ukrainians, which he's on the way to do. So he's building to deal with that. He's making unilateral ties with China to deal with that. Now, again, I'm going to be blunt. Do you seriously think the West could put an army up to challenge the Russians and the Chinese? We don't even know what a woman is. Do you think the 18 to 25-year-olds that will be conscripted to go to war, what do you think is going to happen there? Mind you, the conscription's 18 to 55. So, that's under the ANZUS and now AUKUS treaties. It's disturbing but true. But do you seriously think that we have a chance? I'm just asking the question. Right, remember who's leading the them, they 72 different frying pan versions. That's the young people, right? And their teachers are reinforcing that, okay? But that's a curious one too, because they had a whole month to celebrate Pride. And look, one of the most disturbing things I've seen in a while, and there's a big long list of that, is we'll just say they were marching, saying, we're here, we're queer, we're coming for your children. Like, fuck you are. Okay? Now listen, I grew up around gays and lesbians, right? Probably, look, whether that's right or wrong is an interesting thing to talk about now, considering the things that I've thought about. However, the reality is I don't care, right? Like I've said here 1,000 times, be the best gender fluid unicorn you can be. Just don't push it on my children. Right? Because you're going to provoke a lot of mama and papa bears. You got no idea. Okay? No idea. And we've already been pushed. Right? They just keep pushing society. Yeah? They just keep pushing society. And Israel versus Palestine is the next thing. But if you don't think the American occupation of Iraq for the best part of 20 years didn't stir up a hornet's nest, if you don't think the Afghanistan, I mean, don't get me started on what happened in Afghanistan. China runs Afghanistan, by the way. They took over the Bagram Air Base within 2 weeks. 2 weeks. $1 billion air base. 2 weeks the Chinese were there, taken over. Now they can do whatever they want. Oh, and with the amount of gear that they left behind in Afghanistan, I think the Taliban is somewhere between like the 5th or 6th or 7th largest army in the world now. But don't worry, it's okay. We can't talk about Fight Club. Then we come to Australia. Now, yes, no, eh? Yes, no, right? The yes vote, okay? Now, I would not trust Anthony Albanese to get my order right at a fucking restaurant, okay? And he pummeled and spent $400 million plus the rest to try and convince us to let the Indigenous have a vote to Parliament, right? Voice to Parliament was what it was. Now, law is in LORE law. No tribe speaks for another. This is law. And it's as simple as that. You want to get down to the brass tacks in it, okay? Now, again, I have worked with Indigenous people. I have been inducted into a Indigenous tribe in the Northern Territory. I've walked Arnhem Land. I've worked hand in hand with Indigenous people all over this country, okay? So what I did is I did my due diligence. I rang and got in touch with some of those Indigenous people. I looked at what the elders that I know and respect, who are true elders, right, not white people pretending to be elders, right, but what the true elders that I know and I respect, what were they saying? I rang up to the Northern Territory and I spoke to some people up there. Look, what's going on? What is happening? And do you know what they said? No, is what they said. Not a single Indigenous elder that I know and respect that is a true elder and a true keeper of knowledge and all that sort of stuff, they all said no. So why would I say yes? Well, it turns out 60+% of people apart from Canberra, which if there's not an example of a fishbowl, I don't know what is, right? The people outside Canberra have got no idea what's going on in Australia. No idea, right? Now, Albanese spent $400+ million, lost dramatically, okay? Now, I can't remember, one of the British Prime Ministers with the Brexit thing, what's his name? I can't remember. Someone's screaming it, but it doesn't matter. He stood down after Brexit. Didn't go the way he thought it would. What did Albanese do? Oh, the white people are racist. Are you serious? Are you serious? Now, it created an interesting question in my mind when all this yes-no thing was coming about because, pay the rent and, Albanese didn't even read it, right? But again, that stopped. When was the vote? 2 months ago? Crickets, don't hear anything about it. $400 million down the drain. It's amazing. It's Orwellian. It's so Orwellian, the fact that they just switch narrative, switch. It's unbelievable, right? Just keep switching and they'll never figure it out, right? I mean, any leader worth his salt would have resigned the next day. But he flew to America and gave another $40 million to the Ukraine. Oh, and let's just not forget that you can go back 2012, 2013. Ukraine is the most corrupt place on the planet, okay? Full of biolabs too, by the way. They had to admit that. Right? They're just filtering money through the Ukraine, okay? Billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars. Now, let's just stay on down under for a second. Right now, as I sit here and talk about this, last time I checked, or last time I was told, I should say, I didn't check. Last time I was told there's at least 5 tent cities in southeast Queensland right now as I record this, okay? 5. Now, these aren't homeless people. A lot of these people have full-time jobs. They just can't afford the rent to live in the city close to their work, or they just can't find a house because there's a housing crisis. But don't worry, it's spent $400 million on a voice to Parliament instead of on the people that are actually in the streets. Oh, And Brisbane City Council, well done. Well done. They went through and cleared out 2 of the 10 cities. Their excuse was, they didn't think anyone was living there. Yeah, because they're at fucking work. These aren't people that haven't got jobs. They've got jobs. They can't afford the rent to live in a house because you bump the house prices up so much. That's the actual reality. Now, I can only imagine that if it's Southeast Queensland, there's 5, then what are we going to say? 10 for Sydney? More for Victoria? Okay? But we can't talk about Fight Club, right? We can't talk about it. And these people have got no idea the struggles of the average Aussie, okay? Now, look, between me and my wife, we have hustled, working almost every day almost, to try and get ahead and try and move forward. But every time you go and buy something, oh my God, the prices of everything is just so expensive. And it hasn't reflected in what we've been paid. It never gets reflected. Right? And it's just, I mean, I know that's not a quintessentially Aussie problem. That's happening around the world. But again, zoom out, the cost of knowing, right? You know, and the thing is, guys, look, if you look back from 2020 to here, and we did a lot of the conspiracy stuff and what was actually going on, and I never bought into any of the stuff that turned out to be bullshit. And basically everything I said and agreed with turned out to be true. And one of those things is a digital currency, okay? But in order to make that happen quickly, they need to crash the economy. Like I said, the 2 biggest corporations in the world are making untold billions of dollars, right? While people are struggling to feed their families and feed themselves and fuel their car. Like, the cognitive dissonance, right, has been unbelievable. And I think it at some point it begins to melt your brain. And I think, you know, that's sort of what happened to me. And I have had on top of the self-worth issues and on top of that sort of stuff, there's almost like what is the fucking point of all this, yeah? Like, so what, I do a show. Who gives a shit? What point does it make, right? Now, kudos to you and the listeners. Many of you reached out over the last little while and said your voice definitely did make a difference and that I belong on the mic and get back on the mic. And, well, here I am, okay? I mean, what else do we say about Down Under? What happened to Australia? Oh, that was what I was saying. This whole yes-no thing raised an interesting question to me. Because I am 5th generation Australian, and obviously then my children are 6th generation Australian on my father's side. So that's 170 odd years, whatever it is, 200 years. I think they came here in the 1800s, right? How many generations do you need to be born on the same bit of soil before you're considered indigenous to that land? I just wonder that. You know what I mean? Because it's not like I'm 2nd generation or, you know, my parents are for someone else. However, on my father's side, I'm 5th or 6th generation. Okay? Aussie. Born here. Generation after generation after generation after generation. How many generations are you before you are considered indigenous? Right? And look, you know that, look, I'm not disparaging the indigenous people, okay? Like I said, I have many brothers and sisters across this big brown land, and they were taught and shared with me so much, and a big part of this podcast is trying to unravel the missing truth behind who they actually were and what they were guarding and the information that they had. And why did the Egyptians come here? And why did everybody else come here? Why? Right, there's a big hole that, you know, unlocking the code is part of our, you know, what we're doing is trying to unlock that piece, you know. But it's just an interesting question. You know, I love, so under Australia I had China. in the irony of all ironies, right, the Chinese, so Joe Biden, old granddad himself, if he found the door to get in there, had a meeting with Xi in San Francisco. And they cleaned San Francisco up in 2 weeks, which is just unbelievable. There was an app to monitor where people shit on the streets in San Francisco for a long time, for those that don't know. Anyway, Xi and Biden are going to talk about climate change. As if Xi gives a shit about climate change. He's making more coal-fired power plants every single day. Oh, and by the way, do you know what's in Afghanistan? Like some of the biggest lithium deposits. So then he owns the rare earth minerals to make our bloody solar panels. Right? As if the Chinese give a shit about global warming or climate. It doesn't exist anyway. Okay? Don't even get me started on climate change. Oh, by the way, let's just, again, got to keep up. Got to keep up. Because if you don't, it's over, right? 2 months ago, the whole of Australia is going to burn. You must prepare for fire. And guess what? You wouldn't believe it. Almost immediately, everything started to burn, yeah? For the record, they said the same thing in Greece earlier this year. And they had 22 fires, and it was the worst fire season they'd ever seen. 19 out of those 22 were found to be arsonists, right? And they were in the employ of people, yeah? As I said, guys, it's all bullshit, right? But then the country did start to burn. It's not bullshit for the people at Tara. They burnt to the ground. There was a massive fire out there. All right, I still know some boys out there. I saw some photos, and it was nasty. But then this week, and for the foreseeable future, it's going to be wet. Right? Now, of course, the narrative went from they're setting us on fire deliberately to now they're chem bombing us. Look, in saying that, I saw the most obvious chemtrail I've seen in a long time, the other day, and it went from horizon to horizon. It was not a jet trail like I know about planes. It was a chemtrail. And the thing is, too, again, listen to 200. All right, Conspiracy and Control. With, he knows who he is, the guy that's on those episodes. I'm in the middle of a rant. Anyway, chemtrails aren't. They're totally real. And I saw one the other day, fully went east to west, and now it's all pissing down with rain. So, with the conspiracy shifts, yeah? Oh, they're trying to burn, now they're trying to flood, blah, blah, blah. But the problem is while there's all that noise, right, what is actually really going on, okay? And that's the issue. Right, how do you see through the noise and the white noise and the just the constant, yeah? But then you've got to exist. You got to exist as a human, yeah. But yeah, China. Look, China's been positioning itself. They play the long game, and they've been playing the long game for a long time, long before we've been playing it. And look, Xi wants to be emperor of the world by 2050, and I don't really, apart from whatever the WEF wants to do, by 2030, I don't really see how. Look, empires fall, yeah, and we're about, I think we're witnessing the fall of what would we understand as the West, because it seems to be accelerating, and the US, look, I mean, I wonder, they would never let Robert F. Kennedy into the presidency. However, I wish they would. I wish he could win, because he's probably the most level-headed politician I've heard in a long time. Okay? And thing is, like, how is Trump going to lose? That's the next question, right? I think the only way Trump could lose was up against someone like Robert F. Kennedy. He's definitely going to lose against Biden or any of those other people that are up there. However, this woke nonsense, this accelerated woke nonsense, and just the cognitive dissonance to everything stems from there. They are the superpower. They are the preeminent superpower in the world, and they're trying to spread their idealism, their wokeism, right? And the thing is, while they're doing that, China's just going around through Africa and just throwing money around, right? China's building economies and making a Silk Road, whereas America's trying to convince people that men are women and women are men. Right, I saw a video somewhere in Africa. It was one of the local people in Africa, and he was explaining exactly what I said. The Chinese come, they offer us money, they want to build us airports and further out. They want our mining claims, but they're going to give us money and da 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 da. And on paper, it seems really good, and they do give you the money. And they're trying to build their military. They're giving, they're building them armies in Africa and all that sort of stuff. And this guy was like, "What am I going to do in Africa? Am I going to take the money for food and military aid and housing and infrastructure, or am I going to pretend that a boy's a girl and a girl's a boy? What am I going to do?" Anyone that's got any common sense is going to choose to move their people forward, right? I mean, it's almost nonsensical, okay? Everything that I see, especially in news.com or something like that, I was going to bring up news.com to see what's on there this afternoon, but it was just rubbish, right? And that's the people that, the news that people are consuming. And it's, all that's directive is coming out of the US. It's all, which leads me to no small topic. I'm sure we'll get through this one nice and easy. World War III. Now, one of my, I'm a bit of a historian, particularly about World War II and World War I. I spent a long time researching those, the old school way, books and all that sort of stuff back in the day. And then obviously I followed that on with all the modern stuff. And I always, it seems to be once you sort of, I've always been interested in the two world wars, just why and what and who and how. And, look, the reality is it was cousins fighting each other. It still sort of is, yeah. However, if you look at how the pieces moved prior to World War I, prior to World War II, you would have to say that history will dictate that if World War III actually begins in the next little while, like proper hot kick-off war, that it was already going in 2023. The pieces were already moving, okay? The conflict was already happening. It just expanded. In a lot of ways, I would say it's already started. Now, whether or not it explodes and kicks off into full-blown world war is a different story, right? But we definitely, again, what kind of men are we going to field in the field of battle, right? They didn't grow up on cattle ranches shooting rabbits and, but they're not the hard men, the World War II that lived off the land and survived off the land and, Like I'll give you an example, right? So I'm about to go bow hunting. At the time of recording, I will be, this time next week, I'll be packing the car for an early morning Wednesday takeoff. However, I have a little Bear Grylls survival kit. I've got a funny story about him, but that's probably not for tonight. I'll give you the Bear Grylls story quickly. Long story short, if you watch the Northern Territory version of Bear Grylls, and he's walking through the mangroves, and there could be a crocodile at any point, we've got to be really careful. He's like 10 feet from the road. I know the dude who took him. He's not in the mangroves. Well, he is, but the road runs next to them up there. Anyway, I had this little survival kit. Nice little kit. It's got fishing wire and, anything you would need. And I remember having a face-to-face class a little while ago, and I used to do this. I'd when I had longer classes, I'd like 2-week classes. And we'd talk about, having skill sets, right? And I would grab this little survival kit and I'd throw it in the middle of on the middle table in the middle of the room. And I'd say to them, if I dropped you off in the bush with that, how long do you think you'd survive? Now, personally, I would survive. I'd like to hope I would survive for quite a long time. Okay, there's a reason we go into the middle of the bush for fun, right? However, all these young people looking at it and just like freaking right out. And I remember one kid who puts there's a young fella, he puts his hand, he goes, "How long does it take to die?" And I said, 3 days without water, 2 weeks without food. He's like, "Well, 3 days." Probably sooner if I fall off something. I mean, how? But is that the plan, right? And this is the whole thing when you start sort of, you feel like, there's that classic meme, the dude from the, that crazy dude, he's got all the strings and stuff. I can't remember that dude's name. It's pretty funny, but he was in Horrible Bosses. Yeah, you kind of feel like that dude, because it's like, is this a whole plan? Because the thing is, guys, have you read Agenda 2030 yet? Have you read Klaus's book, The New World Order? You can still get it online. You know what I mean? He wrote it. He wants you to read it. And the plan's pretty much going to plan-ish, right? However, I think, actually, here's a funny thing. The other day, old Klaus got up and said, "People are resisting the authority. The elite, they are resisting." Of course we're resisting, you fucking idiot. Right? We realised, right, for a lot of us, and look, I think the more pressure, the thing is they don't understand, right? And one of the things I got kicked off Twitter, by the way, or X as it's now known. I might try and get back on now that it's X. However, I got kicked off Twitter for saying that, because they were asking about, because food factories burn down these days all the time. Can't talk about Fight Club. Don't mention things like that. It's not true. It's only like 30 of them or something like that across the world. And it was when that was happening that it didn't happen, because, and I said the right trigger hasn't been hit yet. But I think what they don't understand is that the lower and middle class is much, much, much larger than they think. And they think we're pretty stupid, I'm pretty sure. And look, don't get me wrong, modern society has dumbed down a lot of us. However, there's a percentage of people that woke up either during COVID, post-COVID, or were awake before COVID, and we're like, nah, mate, you can fuck off. We don't want your shit. And I don't understand how he doesn't think that that's going to slow down, right? So then the question then begs is like, what is he going to do to slow it down? Right? As I record this, the masks are back mandated in WA because that's a police state. I think only in medical settings last time I saw, but they're trying to push the COVID for Christmas, right? Now, what I saw as passive resistance, right, is that last week, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, they pushed, COVID's back, but have your booster. Imagine lining up for 7. Is it 7 or 8 now? What the fuck is wrong with you? Don't do that. I don't understand. Anyway, my girls had a birthday party where they took the girls to the cinemas in Ipswich, and I walked into Riverlink to go and pick up a couple of things and didn't see a single mask. Hundreds and thousands of people, not a single mask. That is resistance, right? Because there was a time 2.5 years ago where the opposite would have been true. I would have been the only one not wearing a mask, okay? Oh, and by the way, if they try that crap on us again, I can't even tell you how many different ways I'm going to tell them to fuck off. I can't even tell you. Okay? It's a lot. All right? Because it's bullshit. It was always bullshit. You know it, I know it, we know it, enough. Okay? But to take a line from the Oliver Anthony song that I'll probably finish this show with, they don't think that you know, but I know that you do. Okay? But the question is how and when, right? Because after WW3, I had globalization and New World Order, which I sort of followed on with, right? I mean, this is the problem. Yeah, this is the problem. Is there a grander conspiracy at play? Now, it doesn't matter how many times I stand back and observe and look at it again and again and again, it seems that there is, right? And then I think, no, you're crazy. Which, look, there's definitely a case for that. However, I don't think that I am, right? like all the things that I've been right about, the conspiracies coming true and all that sort of stuff, right? I mean, there's that other meme. What's the difference between a conspiracy and fact? It's like 6 months, about 6 months now. We're not keeping score, but us tinfoil hatters are up 47-0 or whatever it is, right? What everybody doesn't understand about, look, some people, because if they're in the team-oriented business, right? Whereas I'm not. I'm not a joiner. I'm not really a follower, right? I am who I am, right? For people like me who are objective and critical thinking and all that sort of stuff, we didn't want to be right. We didn't want to be right about the things that we were right about. However, we were right, okay? And that's why that is one of the big reasons we can't talk about Fight Club. Like, seriously, just for a second, remember some of those press conferences. Doesn't matter where you're from, what country you're from. Safe and effective, vaccinated. Just remember some of that stuff. Remember the protests. Remember the pepper spray, the people firing rubber bullets at each other. Why have people not hung? Because of the Orwellian nature of this modern existence. They just stopped talking about it. Right? Like, there's quiet moments where I still get really angry about that. How those people weren't brought to account. How are they still not brought to account? Right? Look, not kudos, but most of the ministers and state ministers have quietly resigned because they don't want the eye of Sauron on them. I noticed old bloody, Pallet Jack, she's just hanging on, right? Just ride it into the wall, yeah? Her and Trudeau are basically the only ones left from the COVID era. What a pair, eh? However, I could say so many different things right now to blow your mind. However, you know what they are. You know what they are. And there's the other meme that comes up. It's like something in your soul has to know it's not right. We're not right. Things aren't right. That's why you feel weird. That's why, we're in deep, deep, deep shit, guys. Deep shit, okay? Now, the only way forward is together and through. I don't know what else to say apart from that. However, we are just in deep, deep doo-doo, okay? And if we don't do something about it collectively, they're going to keep dragging us along this course. Now, I don't know what that is, okay? Like I said, the end of this podcast, the notes, is a big fat question mark. I don't know what the answer is, okay? That's like part of the reason I haven't got back on the mics. It's like, I don't want to be a downer. But maybe, look, I'm ranting for all of us here, okay? And if you like this rant, pass it on, because at least we can share the burden, right? Because I'm just saying what everybody's feeling. That's all I'm doing. I'm just saying what everybody is feeling, okay? And look, I'll be honest, there is a certain filter that I, not because I want to get, it's just because I like the show to be professional. And I have adapted a certain podcasting filter as far as my true thoughts. Now, I'm not, there is no filter, okay? This is raw and unfiltered, okay? It is what it is, right? And look, I don't expect you to agree with me. I don't want you to agree with me. Again, don't listen to me. But it turns out you guys do listen, right? So that's the reason I'm here. Where were we? New World Order. Look up online, wherever it is. There's a video of every politician around the planet saying New World Order, New World Order, New World Order from 2020 to now. Over and over and over and over and over. Oh, no, hang on. They stopped saying it about 2022 because Klaus said, oh, no. They have figured it out, okay? Yeah, but, well, what did you think was going to happen, okay? When you take from the poor and give to the rich and then just leave us to die in the middle, what do you think? I mean, again, they don't have any idea, I don't think. Right? If they continue to push this narrative and continue, the dam is going to break, right? And it's going to be every man for himself. And I don't know where that leads, okay? But all the piles of gold in the world haven't saved any of the kings in the past, okay? All right. I thought I'd finish talking about the podcast. and the research behind the podcast. Because one of the other things, I sort of talked a little bit about it earlier. I sort of came into the alternative archaeology research thing a little bit rose-coloured glasses, yeah. I need another drink, hang on. That was very loud, sorry about that. And I've had those rose-coloured glasses torn off. And one of the things that came to my attention is that we, not only when we gave $3,000 to Gympie Pyramid to try and help them and all that sort of stuff, it was about $3,000 all told after all the money we spent. And you might remember we got labelled as white supremacists and basically everything under the sun. But as it turns out as well, we were also labelled in certain groups, this show and the brothers that came with me from this show, in good faith, as thieves. We stole from the Gympie side, apparently. Let me clear this up right now. No. Not ever. Okay? We would never take from a sacred site. In fact, do you know what we did do? Each one of us, I made sure that all the boys that came with me, I said, make sure you have something to give. And for those boys that forgot, I gave them some tobacco or something. I had some extra bits and pieces. And not only did we give thanks to the land and the ancestors of the land, we gave a gift to the land. We only ever gave to the land. Now look, I'm not a perfect person at all. I've made a lot of mistakes. A lot. Okay? However, I'm no thief. Okay? And especially not from sacred sites. Ever. Okay? Now, I'll be totally honest. That only came to light a couple of months ago. Probably not long before I did the last couple of shows that I did. And it really took the wind out of my sails. That really insulted me. The fact that people would even think that. And the fact that people wouldn't stand up for me when that was said really hurt me deeply, because that's not who I am. Like I said before, UTC is about integrity. All right? Yeah, sure, we have a bit of fun. Have we gotten drunk and said some silly stuff? Of course we have. But it's not about that, right? You know what I'm saying. However, we would never take from a sacred site. Never. Okay? Without permission. With permission, of course. And let me set the record straight. So the rock at the Gympie Pyramid. Oh, by the way, there's this magical tunnel that ran under the Gympie Pyramid. Yeah, I went there. There's a big fucking highway right where the tunnel should have been. So, bullshit. Okay? However, look, the actual site where the stones are, the step pyramid looking stones, the walls, that's still there. Okay, they put a highway through next to the railway line, and the main part of the top where all the rocks and stuff is still there. Now, look, I've got some photos. And by the way, I never even shared any of the data or any of the photos or anything to do with that. Never spoke a word about it on the show until I was called a white supremacist and an arsehole and labelled everything under the sun, right? Didn't say a word. After that, who gives a fuck? I don't care, right? You don't call me things like that when they're not true. And people know that they're not true. However, whatever. I did ask because there's some interesting, and I've got photos of it, right, where there's the rocks up at the top of the site there. They look like they've been cut. Now, the story went that they are the same. So if the polygonal masonry wall from the church is from the Gympie, from Jaki Kundu, and the stones were cut on site, which they look like there has been stone cut on site, I said, all right, well, we chip a bit off the Gympie, off the polygonal masonry wall in Gympie, we chip a bit off the Gympie Pyramid, and we send them away to be tested to see whether they're the same stone. because you can do that, right? Oh no, we can't take a single stone from the side. It'll disrupt it. No, bullshit. Like, so the thing about that whole situation is they weren't willing to actually. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary results. And every time we tried to verify a claim, we were told no, right? Doesn't mean we took something and did something. I didn't do anything. I like, when all that stuff blew up, it really, really hurt me, right? I put a lot of time and effort and money and like hours and hours on the road up there and back like 7 or 8 times. And extraordinary claims require extraordinary things, right? And they're still trying to stop the highway. The highway's not going to be stopped. It's already half built, right? Like, nothing was stopped. Nothing was stopped, ever. Right? And I do know that those people had the ability to buy the property at a certain time where they just could have said no to the highway. But instead, they've been dragging it on for 40, 30, whatever, how many bloody years it is. Anyway, I don't want to stop about that. But anyway, that really took the wind out of my sails. Because at Unlocking the Code, we are here to unlock the code. We are not here. Look, I could bloody, sit in the corner of a video and go, hey, and, try and sell myself to sell things, right? I've got some loyal Patreon people, and I suck with those guys. I'm not good at that, right? Thankfully, they know I'm not good at that, and they're okay with that. And I really thank you, boys. I really, really appreciate that, okay? Some of that little bit of cash has come my way through Patreon has actually put food on my table more than once, boys. Okay, so thank you very much for that. However, I'm not out to be some super successful person. As I say, I don't think I'm worth anything. I've got a terrible self-worth issue. I'm not out to bloody, I used to joke about the fact I wanted to be the next Aussie Joe Rogan. It's only because I wanted a podcast all the time. Don't like my job, right? I don't imagine most of us don't like our jobs, you know what I mean? There was no arrogance in that, and it's not like I'm trying to chase that level of success. It kind of freaks me out the amount of people who listen to the show now, if I'm totally honest. So yeah, that whole Gympie thing, and again, I went up there and I saw the highway straight through the middle and where the tunnel was supposed to be, and it was all mystical and magical, and there's nothing there. Right? There's nothing there. Okay? So, and if there was, they bulldozed straight through it. Like, seriously, bulldozed straight through it. And no one said anything. Right? But yeah, there's some grand conspiracy. Anyway. Look, the Gympie stuff and the polygonal masonry, there's a different version there where there's another theory forming, but I'm not ready to fully unpack. Another theory about Australia, actually, talking about Australia, is the next stop point. Look, Australia's got a bigger, deeper story to tell, right? Because the one bit of research that I can't seem to put down is the I am God, you are God, we are God, you are the God or goddess or universal source energy within. It's the triptych, right? Because the triptych is the one thing that brings every single megalithic culture together. It is the ultimate sign of the ancient religion where science and spirituality were one, okay? And through that, where I can't stop looking at churches and I can't stop trying to find Mason temples and all that sort of stuff, there's a big part of that in Australia. What actually happened 1600s, 1700s, yeah? I think some key Masons ran to Australia, and if you look at outback Australia and the level of churches and temples and stuff that I've seen in my travels, like, why are you building a massive temple in the middle of nowhere? Because you can, because you're flexing your ability, and maybe you're going to build a polygonal masonry wall because you can, and you have the skill set and the knowledge to, just to mess with people. Because the other thing about polygonal masonry, if we talk about like a world type thing, it's everywhere. Okay. Many kudos to Laura, the megalith hunter. She's been over to Italy and Sicily, and there's all sorts of polygonal masonry. It looks exactly like the stuff there at Gympie, right? So it echoes around the globe, right? There's a bigger, larger, deeper story to be told. You know, and look, the other side of the yes versus no thing is just division, okay? Because do you know what is the way forward? The way forward is Wirtgen, right? And that's, honestly, any of the stuff that I went to Gympie, that's how I was looking at it. Wirtgen, okay? Black fella, white fella dreaming, working together as one. And yeah, stealing was not ever going to be any part of that. Like, it really hurt me, eh? Anyway. Australia, the triptych. Look, I know we're going to do one of Casaro's book. Me and Angus are going to do one of Casaro's books. I don't know where Casaro is. He dropped off the planet during COVID, however, because the triptych is the answer. And look, the thing about, you know, how do you explain to someone they are God? I don't even know how to grasp it myself. So it's difficult to communicate, but I know inside my, like, just every fibre of my being is like, this is the answer. This is the thing that joins it all together. It's actually all the same. Like everything else is all the same. The larger story, the code is becoming true, okay? So we're going to do the triptych. That may or may not be the last big project that Unlocking the Code ever undertakes. I don't know, okay? Yeah, I don't know. All right. But we are going to do Casaro's book, and we'll see where that ends up, and I'll do some other stuff around that as well. Social media is the next one. And social media is taking a weird turn with these reels and all this sort of stuff, and I'm just not going to do that, okay? I'm not. And I don't care. I wish I cared. No, I don't, because that's a bit of a vapid existence. I mean, you know, there was a time early on in the show where I do selfies and all that sort of stuff. I never liked doing selfies. It was like I was copying a model of social media like Jocko, and, you know, they're taking a selfie and get after it, and, you know, memes and trying to be funny. And honestly, I just don't care enough. It's not that I don't care about you guys. I really do. However, you know, the honest truth is, every time I ask you to reach out to me, you don't. So, and that's cool, because I think you're a lot like me and you don't really want to. You just want to listen and be cool, and that's fine. Okay? So don't worry about it. It's okay. However, I stopped doing social media pretty much all the whole time when I was still when I had earlier this year, and, you know, best downloads ever, no social media. So it doesn't matter anyway. So I don't know what my social media presence will be, whether I'll up it, whether I'll down it. I don't know. I honestly think it's part of the problem, and it's that closely monitored now. You know, as I say, I kicked off Twitter for saying that they're going to push people to the brink, which they are, and they're still trying to. You know what I mean? It's not like it's untrue, right? You know, the old fact checkers didn't exist till the truth started coming out. In fact, it is one of the things that I don't think that they know that we know, but we all know that if a post is fact checked, then there's probably more truth to it than not. We don't believe the fact check. We probably believe the post more. Okay. Talks and conferences. One of the other reasons I stopped doing the show is I realised a dream. All right. I remember, and the thing is, it's like, I think I was watching like one of my first UFO documentaries, or alternative origin documentaries, like pyramids or something like that. As a young boy, like I don't remember how old I was at all. However, I remember thinking that'd be cool to do, and I did it. Right, I gave a talk. I didn't make any money out of it, but it cost me money to do it. However, it's all bullshit, right? You know, those megalith conferences, you're paying to be there. You're paying to, it's only the top 2 or 3 people that actually get paid to talk. You're not, everyone else is paying their own way. And you get the benefit is, I scratch your back, you scratch my back. The benefit is being there, right? Especially for the lesser guys. No one gets paid, okay? Apart from, you know, your Hancocks and all those type of guys. They get paid. No one else does. That's all bullshit too. But anyway. And that was another thing that I looked in. It's like, okay, do I give talks? Do I give conferences? I gave the talk, and I gave it to some people that, it was more of a UAP thing that I gave it, and it went really well. They were a bit skeptical. They asked really good questions. I still don't know what I walked into, if I'm honest. However, it was a good time, right? And I did it, and I left, and everyone really enjoyed it. It was quite fascinating, actually, because I don't think I was going to be taken seriously, so they put me up before lunch, and then I delivered my talk, and everyone didn't want me to stop talking. So, and I didn't finish what I wanted to finish because people were asking good questions. Hopefully I get to finish that talk. I really sincerely hope I do get to finish that talk somewhere. And I suppose with the talks and conferences, right, a few people said they'd love to come and see some of this stuff. Because look, it's one thing, right? It's like I've got a hand on one research book. There's another one in my lap. There's another couple in the bookcase. There's folders after folders after folders of research. There is 4 slideshows ready to go that could be adapted and improved a little bit, but they're ready to go. I could give multi-hour talks on 4 different subjects, mainly megaliths and UAPs and triptych. But I could give a talk on each of those tomorrow if I wanted to. The research is ready to go. And done, and all done, right? The slideshow's ready to go. I've got all the gear. I could do it tomorrow. I suppose I got to with the talks and the conference things. What's the point, right? And look, that could be my self-worth talking, yeah, or my lack of self-worth talking, I should say. And yeah, look, I don't know what I'll do, because the other thing is too, guys, like the rest of us. Look, I'll be totally honest, right? I've been prepping and scrimping and saving and doing deals for months in order to go camping for 3 days next week, okay? I'd love to go on a field trip, all right? I'd love to go on more field trips like I did a couple of years ago. However, I fail at the first step, which is filling my fucking car up, yeah? When you're running a diesel truck, it costs $200 and something to fill the car up. I don't know. Look, I'm only echoing the pain of everybody else, yeah? And the thing about conferences is it costs money. You got to hire rooms, you got to pay up front, you got to do all that sort of stuff. And look, there's a lot of weeks there where there is no savings. There's zero in the account before I get paid the next day or the next week, yeah? And I know I'm not alone in that. However, that is what it is, okay? So whilst I'd love to give talks and conferences and I'm ready to go to give one, the who, what, when, where, how is an interesting concept. I'd actually really love to give one where I live. There's a little triptych church down the road from my house, right? That they don't know it's triptych. That's the thing. There's these echoes in design. We'll get into that in the next series. However, I'd love to do it down there because you could literally, I could show you, right? It's right there. So look, I'm not going to never say never as far as the talks are concerned. However, as with most things and most people these days, it's a resource issue. And yeah, I'd love to. I really enjoyed doing it. However, on the flip side, after I did it, I was like, is that it? But I think the thing is I need to look at it through a lens that I am a teacher and I do present all the time. Was it more fun presenting that stuff as a proper thing? Yeah, it was super cool, right? All the other times I've presented that stuff, I've had to squeeze it into legitimate classes, just for a bit of fun. However, or a bit of a break from the curriculum. Yeah, never say never with that. I would still like to do that, really would. And I think there's a couple of boys that I'd like to bring along with me as well. So, yeah. Oh, look at that. The UAP UFO stuff, look, that continues to evolve. I do sort of stay on top of it, but it's more of a what we know and we'll tell you in the next 12 months, in the next 12 months, the next 12 months. It's more of that clickbait bullshit. You know what I mean? Like, that's my other problem too, is I'm not going to go, and then next time, you wait till next week. No, I'm not going to do that to you. You know what I mean? Like, all that mumbo jumbo bullshit, I can't do it, right? I am who I am. It is what it is. End of story, right? Yeah, look, the longer the UAP UFO stuff goes on, and the same thing is said by, the whole, look, it's we've spoken about it on Anthony's show a number of times. I don't know whether or not he put that up on YouTube or Rumble or whatever it is. I might actually post that video to my YouTube channel if it's still active. I haven't been kicked off YouTube. Yeah, I'll see. Because we spoke about that at length, and nothing much changes since then. Every now and again, I'll listen to a few different podcasts that I know are, deep into that stuff, and it's all the same, right? I mean, the distractions are thick and heavy, and the powers that be, if they are the UAP, UFO stuff, they're not going to let it go, right? Because you talk about a crumbling narrative. If that happens, you wait. The future of the podcast. Underneath that is a big fat question mark, big red question mark. I don't know. So, look, I will release this. When I sat down, I didn't know whether I was going to release this. However, a fair few of you, those that do reach out to me have asked me for something like this. So this is for you. For those people that said, what is my real opinion on some of this stuff? Well, look, I'm sure we could wax lyrical for many more hours. However, that is a good snapshot of my opinion. I'm going to go on my bow hunting trip next week. Part of the reason I did this tonight is I wanted to get this stuff out of my head to do that. And I wanted to just feel what this was like, and then I can think about that and process that. For the record, even though someone left me unsupervised with the microphone in the refinery, this has been cathartic for me. So Loomis, if you're listening, thank you. He's the one that said to me, when you're ready, just get back on the mic. Sometimes that can be cathartic, and it has been. And despite my crippling self-worth issues and, me not really understanding why you listen to this show, I do really have love for you guys, okay? There has been times in the last, since UTC was created, was that this was my passion, this was my function, and it has really provided me with some amazing people, some amazing friends, and have some amazing experiences, yeah. So for that, I thank you very, very much. And I didn't mean to be too much of a downer. However, I don't know what the fucking answer is, guys, apart from love. Love is the answer, but how do you spread that? I don't know. I don't know how to do it. Right? I know what the answer is. I know the fact that if we all realise that we are the universal source energy within, then nothing could stop us. But how do you tell 8 billion people that and take away thousands of years of belief systems and stereotypes and bullshit? I don't know. How do you how do you undo and rewrite the history that we've been told to, something that's better and more positive? So what is the future of the show? I don't know, guys. Okay, I want to do the triptych. I wanted to get this out of my head. I wanted to go back out to Jackals, which is what I'm going to do for a few days, and I'm going to allow Mother Nature to give me whatever it needs to give me to move forward in one way or the other. I found this, which was the Coder's Oath. Okay, so I think the last time I rewrote this, 26th of the 5th, 20. So it's over 3 years ago now that I wrote this. Well, no, the first version I wrote years and years and years ago in the first year or two of the podcast, right? And this was the intention. And I might finish with this, guys. I think we're going to put Oliver Anthony, Richmond, North of Richmond. Why? Because that song needs to be forever in rotation, okay? Apart from the Fudge Rounds thing, but it, that all joins that together. One of the side projects that I I would like to do is I wouldn't mind doing my own version of Richmond, North of Richmond. Angus might play the guitar, and I'm going to change that little verse that sort of doesn't destroy the song, but it takes it down a peg. Anyway, the Coder's Oath. The energy must remain pure, always being mindful of the intent behind the podcast. That is, to grow, learn, be free, and share knowledge. To help others on their journey by providing tools to unlock their own code. To explore ideas about who we are, where we have come from, what is our true past, and how we become what we need to be. The steps we need to take to bring whatever truths we can find into the light. To be truth warriors. To be disciplined in our thoughts, our actions, our words, and our deeds. To the best of our ability, be men of the highest order, understanding all sides of self, the lover, the artist, the healer, the father, and the warrior. To explore all perspectives, ensuring no gaps between the pieces on our mirror ball, and being able to react in a manner which befits our station as coders. To always be kind to others, however ensuring our kindness is never mistaken for weakness. Understanding that being prepared and disciplined is necessary to understanding how to react, no matter the situation. Be strong of mind, body, and soul, because we are all a three-part being. We must always honour and understand this. Above all, to be honest with ourselves, to understand all sides of life, the good, the bad, and the ugly. That within all situations in life, there are lessons to be learned. We must face them all, not without fear, because fear will always exist. We must face them all with the courage, honour, and fortitude, so we can truly unlock the code to life in our time. I do try and do that, guys. You know, and it's fascinating. I read that and I don't think that I wrote it. I don't know that I did write it. I think maybe that was the muse or whoever or whatever the energy is behind this show. Thanks very much, guys. This has been cool. What I want you to do is, this rant was for everybody, okay? So I've released some of that weight from my shoulders. If you've listened to this rant and you agreed with it, release some weight from your shoulders, okay? Because we are many and we can lighten each other's burdens. Until next time, guys, look after yourselves. Be prepared. Be disciplined. And we'll talk soon. Cheers.
I've been selling my soul, working all day, overtime hours for bullshit pay, so I can sit out here and waste my life away, drag back home and drown my troubles away. It's a damn shame what the world's gotten to for people like me, people like you. Wish I could just wake up and it not be true, but it is. Oh, it is living in the new world with an whole soul. These rich men north of Richmond, Lord knows they all just wanna have total control. Wanna know what you think, wanna know what you do, and they don't think you know, but I know that you do. 'Cause your dollar ain't shit, and it's taxed to no end. 'Cause the rich men, don't the rich men. I wish politicians would look out for miners, and not just miners on an island somewhere. Lord, we got folks in the street, ain't got nothing to eat, and the obese milking welfare. Well, God, if you're 5'3" and you're 300 pounds, taxes ought not to pay for your bags of fudge rounds. Young men are putting themselves 6 feet in the ground, 'cause all this damn country does is keep on kicking them down. it's a damn shame what the world's gotten to for people like me, people like you. Wish I could just wake up and it not be true, but it is. Oh, it is living in the new world with an old soul. These rich men know the rich men, Lord knows they all just wanna have total control. Wanna know what you think, wanna know what you do, and they don't think you know, but I know that you do, 'cause your dollar ain't shit, and it's taxed to no end, 'cause the rich men know the rich men. I've been selling my soul, working all day, overtime hours for bullshit pay.